So again, okay, my name is Scott Trivigno, the Benefits Director. You'll see Natasha Singh. Natasha is one of the benefits managers. She primarily focuses on the health and welfare side, along with claims and participant services. You'll also see Casey Cirillo. She is also a benefits manager who focuses primarily on the retirement, pension, and annuity side. So all three of us are here to tag team each other and talk about how you become eligible for benefits, pre-retirement, retirement, and to kind of give you some insight and answer any questions that you may have as we go along. So I encourage everybody, as we are talking about this, if you have a question, raise your hand during the presentation or during the conversation so that we can address it immediately and not wait till the end for a Q&A. We find that if there's a topic on your mind at this moment, it's easier to just stop and discuss it at that moment. Anything that's personal to you that you want to ask a question about, please do so offline. We don't, especially when the health, because it's HIPAA related, HIPAA, your privacy laws, we can't discuss your personal health account or issues. We even don't do that with retirement. So if you have any questions on the personal nature, we'll give you our contact information, and you can send us an email or give us a call, and we can talk about your personal situation once this is done. So what we thought today was we would start with pension. We'll start talking about pension. Now, I know that most everybody under 161 probably their contributions go to MPI, but there are a lot of you who do have contributions here at the National Benefit Fund related to pension, and we're going to talk about that. And Casey is just going to chime in at some point too and talk about the merger that 161 had with the National Benefit Fund and how that affects those of you who had credits at 161, where those were merged in with the National Benefit Fund's Pension Plan C. So we're going to talk about that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go through some of our slides regarding pension. And again, Casey and Natasha are going to be my eyes because I won't see you after I share my screen. So if anybody has any questions, raise your hand. Somebody will let me know, and either myself, Casey, will answer your questions regarding pension, and then we're going to go on to annuity after that. So we'll start it now. Drum roll. Does everybody, oh, I can see you all the way on the side. That's interesting. I didn't do that before. So can everybody see my screen? Okay, the I.A.T.S.E National Pension Fund. Let's get started. So you'll see at the beginning, it says Pension Fund Plan B or C. There are there are three, but two that are actively receiving contributions. For those under the 161 agreements, you're only under Plan C, which is great because it's the easier one to explain. Pension Plan B is a nightmare. And I say that because we've worked with it, and it can be very confusing to explain. Although Casey is an expert at it.
C is so much better.
No. So what is a pension plan? A pension plan is a defined benefit plan. Once you're eligible, which we'll go over, what that means for you is if you become eligible for a pension benefit, you receive a monthly benefit every single month until you are no longer on this earth. And if you're married and your spouse is still around after you decease, then they also can receive a benefit based upon the selection during the initial process of applying for your benefit, which we will also go over. Let's see. It's where I gotta somehow get you guys off because there it is. So I can no longer see you, but if anybody has a question during this process, please somebody just let me know. So how do you become eligible for a benefit under Plan C here? barring that, we're going to talk about your merged credits. Let's first talk about how you become a participant in this pension fund. And Casey, for those under the 161 merger agreement, those credits count towards participation under our plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so any credits that were transferred over when we did the merge with 161 for pension plan C, any credits that you have from there when added with ours are make you become eligible. So Casey, are they automatically a participant
Yes,
when
it is
automatically?
automatically a participant. Yep.
All right,
Those
so we have
those who are coming in with credits, who came
with
in.
credits.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were one of those participants who had credits previous to the merge at 161, when you transferred those credits over to us, you automatically became a participant. For those that were not part of the merge, and again, we can tell you what your status is. You could just send us an email. We'll let you know where you're at. In order to become a participant, you must work 75 days in covered employment for 12-month consecutive rolling period. So we're going to look at when we first receive a contribution on your behalf. And for 12 months from that date, we're going to look to see if you've worked 75 days within that 12-month period. If you haven't, we're going to start that again the next month and look forward 12 months, or look back 12 months, I should say. And when you reach that 75 days, and within that 12-month rolling period, we then give you a participation date. So if you've reached that 75th day of work in May of 2021, for example, your participation date would be July of 2021. We only start participation dates on January or July. So if you reach that 75th day in December, then your participation date start would be January of 2022, for example. So once you have become a participant of the fund, we then start looking at the calendar year. And this is where it might become a little confusing for some, so bear with me as I try to explain this. So as you work under these agreements, your employer submits contributions to this fund, but they also submit days you worked under those agreements. In order to become eligible for a pension benefit, you must be vested in the plan, minimally vested in the plan. And in order to become vested in the plan, you must either have earned 5 vesting credits or 5 pension credits. So there's days that the employer is submitting on your behalf during the course of the year. You're earning credits, vesting and pension simultaneously based on those number of days. So for example, if to earn a vesting credit within a year, you must have worked 75 days with an employer required to submit pension contributions to this plan on your behalf. That 75 days will earn you 1 vesting credit. You can only earn 1 vesting credit per year. And if you don't work 75 days, you will not earn any vesting credits in that year. But simultaneously, that 75 days that you worked in that year, let's just say you worked 70 days in that year, you may not have earned a vesting credit, but that 70 days earns you some partial pension credit. So on the pension credit side, you can only earn 1 pension credit per year. But unlike the vesting, where you can earn 1 credit or 0, on the pension credit side, based upon the number of days that you've worked, from starting with 45 days up to 210 days, you can earn a partial pension credit up to 209 days. If you work 210 days or more, you earn 1 pension credit. So those days that you're working, they afford you the benefit of earning something under the vesting column and something under the pension credit column. Once you reach 5 vesting credits or 5 pension credits, you're vested in the plan. Once you have achieved vesting status, we no longer care about that vesting credit column. So once you're vested, you're vested. And what that means is when you retire, you have an irrevocable right to some sort of pension benefit. I'm sorry if you hear my dog growling in the background. Gracie, stop. She heard somebody out the door. So does anybody have any questions with regards to what I just spoke about with regards to vesting credits or pension credits and how they are deemed, how you earn them? If not, what we do is over the years, forever how many years, any credits, any days that you work, they're going to accumulate in a file for you. And each year you're going to keep accumulating these pension credits. What's great is that once, like I said before, once you've attained vesting status, you no longer really have to worry about whether you're eligible for a pension benefit or not. And as I started, like I said, starting in the beginning, for anybody that wants to know what their status is today, you can send us an email. Take down this email address, pension@IATSE NBF.org. You can send an email to that email address, ask for an estimate, and what that estimate will show you is what your status is today. We'll tell you how many credits you've accumulated, if you are vested in the plan, and if you are vested, what the pension credit report tells you is if you stopped working today, what your benefit might be at age 65 based on what we've received so far. So it is a good way to gauge if you're working for a pension benefit, when you can stop worrying about something like that. Once you're vested, and you will be eligible for a benefit at age 65. One of the drawbacks of, I guess, any pension plan is how you lose credits. And I know that there's probably a lot of people who have a pension benefit over at MPI, but for those of you who do work under agreements where pension contributions come to this fund, like I said, you can accumulate those credits, and Casey's going to talk about the merger in a few moments, but any credits that were transferred from the merger that are added to any credits you earn under any agreements here, they accumulate over years. But if you never work enough days to accumulate enough credit to be vested, and you stop working under agreements, or you don't work enough under agreements where contributions come here for the pension fund, you could lose credits. You can lose all your credits and participation if you're never vested, if you never become vested. So the one thing that I tell everybody is if you have control over it, if you can work under agreements, you can lose your credits in what we call as a break in service. So in a year, if you work at least 37.5 days in a year, you will not lose any credits, meaning you haven't not incurred any break in service, your credits are safe. If you work less than 37.5 days and in a year, you incur a 1-year break in service for that year. So if you're not vested and you incur a one-year break in service, you're okay at that point. However, if you don't work at least 37.5 days in 5 consecutive years, you will incur a break in service each of those 5 years. And what that's called is a permanent break in service, meaning if you have not vested and you do not work under agreements where contributions come here for at least 5 consecutive years, and you earn 5 consecutive 1-year breaks in service, then you've incurred a permanent break in service and you lose all the credits that you had before. Now, this is where I might pass it on to Casey because I have a question I'm not sure about. Casey, if they transfer credits and they're a participant, but they have not vested under this fund, can those merged credits in, if they're not vested, be lost due to a permanent break?
No, they're frozen. So those credits are frozen and will be added. So with the national, the break in service starts and continues with the current plan, meaning the national plan.
So at age 65, if they've got 4 merged credits in, for example, and if you need to look this up in the merger agreement, we can get back to people on this. I just want to make sure that we address that if they've got credits that were transferred over to this fund and those credits were not enough to give them vested status here when we add whatever they've got. I just want to make sure that we address that with everybody, and we can certainly look into that if you don't know the answer today.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to you in like 2 seconds. I just
Okay.
pulled the agreement up, so I just wanted to double check the break in service.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, so because I can't see you, if anybody has any questions or if I've totally confused you thus far, please raise your hand or let us know you have a question, and I'll be certainly glad to answer that question now just to clarify. I can't really be that good at this, so if you do have a question at a later point, certainly let us know.
I'm checking the chat and I'll let you know if anyone does pose a question. Yeah.
All right. So with all of that, you know how you get out, you know how you become eligible. If you're one of those participants, one of those members of Local 161 who had credits that were merged here, any other contributions or days worked, we add all that together. We're going to assume everybody is now eligible for a pension benefit. You know what's great under Plan C is once you're eligible for a benefit, all the contributions that your employers have submitted, and that includes anything that came over from the 161 merger, all those contributions over the years, whether they are part of a credit earned or not, all of them are considered when calculating your benefit. So Plan C was established in 2002, so you couldn't have earned credits prior to that anyway, but any credits you earned, any contributions that came in, when you apply for your benefit, we're going to look at your total contributions. Let's just use $10,000 as an example. We're going to look at your total contributions of $10,000 over 15 years because you're vested, you're eligible for a pension benefit. We're going to take everything that was contributed on your behalf. We're going to multiply that number by 3% as an accrual rate, and that the end result of that is your base monthly benefit. Now I say base because there are a lot of other things involved. So if you've earned $10,000 and we take 3%, that means we're going to start your benefit at $300 a month. If you're married, let me not skip ahead. So under Plan C, like I said, is calculated by percentage of all contributions received up to a maximum of 25 years. We haven't reached the 25-year mark yet under Plan C, so we don't really have to talk about that now, but if we do, what Plan C does is it takes the best 25 years and calculates it based on that. You can retire early, meaning you can retire from the age of 55 to 64, but under Plan C, you need 10 pension credits in order to do that. So if you're lucky enough to have worked a lot and you do have 10 pension credits, what the plan does is it allows you to retire early. And we'll take to that point, whatever contributions you have, multiply it by 3% to get your base. But we're going to reduce that benefit by 0.5% per month up to the age of 65 because we're paying that benefit longer. So if you retire at 60 because you can, we're going to take that 10,000, multiply it by 3% to get you $300 a month. Then from 60 to 65, we're talking about 60 months. We're going to take 60 months times 0.5%, and we're going to reduce your benefit by whatever that number is. That dollar amount is reduced because now maybe you'll get $200 a month, but you're going to get it for a much longer period of time. And if you're disabled and you prove disability, there are certain requirements that you have to submit. If you're deemed disabled by the Social Security Administration, you need to submit that letter, the date of the initial disability. And I believe you have to work 75 days within the prior 2 years of that disability to be eligible for disability benefit. And there are no reductions for that. So it is as if you were retiring at age 65 under a normal circumstance. So we look at disability as the same. And you can retire if you're eligible, only if you're eligible for disability benefit if certain requirements are met. And I just mentioned a few of them. Does anybody have any questions regarding the base benefit as far as how it's calculated and what is used? Okay. This is what I was starting to get into previously. So we take your base benefit, reduce it by early if you're early, whatever it is, we look at what that bottom line for you is. You have the options, if you're married, to provide for your spouse should you pass away while receiving this benefit for the rest of their life. So when you complete your pension application, you have 3 options. There's a 60-month certain in life option, and there's a 50% joint and survivor option, and there's a 75% joint and survivor option. What that means is there are the 50% and the 75% joint and survivor options for you means that whatever your benefit is, you're going to receive that benefit for the rest of your life. When you apply for your benefit and you're married, you're going to need to make a choice on whether you want to provide for your spouse any pension benefit should you predecease your spouse. So the 60-month certain in life is just that. Within 60 months of the first payment you receive, if you pass away, within that first 60 months of your payments, your spouse is going to receive the remainder of the 60 months. So for example, if you choose the 60-month certain in life and your benefit is not reduced by anything, it's going to be what it is, unless you've retired early, but whatever it is at age 65 is what you're going to get. If you choose a 60-month certain in life, that benefit will go for the rest of your life. However, if you die 2 years into receiving your benefit, that means there are 3 years within that 60-month that still have not been paid for, and your spouse will receive that remaining 3 years for the rest of their life. If you have chosen the 60-month certain in life, after starting your pension benefit, that is well after that 60-month period, your spouse receives nothing for the remainder of their life. So that 60-month CNL only relates to what happens if you pass away within the first 60 months of starting to receive your benefit. Then your spouse can get the remainder of what you would have gotten within that 60 months. But you as a participant will receive that benefit until you die. The CNL, the 60-month CNL option only refers to what your spouse will receive if you die within that first 60 months. Outside of that 60 months, your spouse receives nothing. However, there are 2 options that you can select. One of these options for your spouse should you die while receiving your benefit. That 50% benefit, you can see the calculation here. if you choose this when you retire, for example, we're going to use that $300 base benefit. We're going to take 90% of the benefit plus 0.4% of the month if your spouse is younger, or we're going to, hold on, plus 4% month. Okay. And if your spouse is older, we're going to increase the yeah, I'm explaining it wrong, but there's going to be a reduction. And the calculation is there. So what that means is if, say, for example, your benefit is 300, we're going to plus or minus it the number of years your spouse is younger or older than you. That benefit you're going to receive for the remainder of your life. So let's say, for example, that reduction equals $250 as your benefit for the rest of your life if you choose a 50% option. When you die, your spouse will receive 50% of that amount. So whatever the reduction, whatever the base benefit is, if you choose that 50%, your spouse is going to receive half of that for the rest of their life. If you choose that 75%, you see there's a different calculation. When you die, your spouse will receive 75% of the benefit you receive. And that's really what you need to know when making these decisions. Know that the 60-month CNL means if you die outside of that 60 months, your spouse gets nothing for the remainder of their life. If you die while receiving a benefit and you select that 50% option when you complete your application, when you die, your spouse will receive 50% of what you receive for the remainder of their life once you pass away. And the same goes for 75%. If at the time of application you select the 75% option, when you die, your spouse will receive 75% of what you received for the remainder of their life. So that's something to consider when making your selection. And if your spouse is on file, when we send you an estimate, we'll also, within the estimate, you'll see the different amounts that will be available as far as the calculation goes with these options too. If your spouse is not on file, we're only going to give you the 60-month CNL. We assume you're single. But if you want us to assume these other benefits, the 50% and the 75%, you need to submit your marriage certificate. So we have it on file. We mark your record as married. So when the system calculates the benefit, you'll see that if you select 60 months, this is what it'll be for you. If you select 50%, this is what it will be for you. If you select 75%, this is what it will be for you. And the calculation for your spouse as well. So again, we were talking about how to get your credits. If you're so inclined and you're curious, send an email to the pension fund.
May I just add one thing to the JNS?
Of course, yes.
So just to sum up, basically, the younger your spouse is, the less you're going to make monthly, because the actuarial is we have to pay them out longer because they're younger. That's one of the significant reductions. But I also want to point out that the national fund allows, if you do choose a pop-up, no, excuse me, I'm going to talk about pop-up. If you do choose a JNS and your spouse passes away before you, you as the participant gets the original unreduced amount back after that. So if you had taken the 50%, JNS, your spouse passes away before you, you just contact the fund office, we get the death certificate, your pension benefit the month later goes back up to the unreduced amount.
Thank you, Casey. That's really important to know, because the 50 and 75% option, the JNS options, are really to ensure that upon your passing, your spouse has something for the remainder of their life. But as Casey mentioned, that pop-up, if they happen to pass away before you, your benefit is then no longer reduced by that 50 or 75% option. So it's a good point. With that said, does anybody have any questions about what we've spoken to? And Casey, I think at this point, if there is anything with regards to the merger
Mhm.
that we haven't discussed that you want to mention?
Sure. So one thing that we have seen in the fund office is the merger agreement from Local 161 to the national was effective 1/1/05. The normal retirement age for 161 is age 60, but for the national plan, it's age 65. So we've come across this a couple times where we have somebody retire already vested with 161, now vested with National Plan C, but your dates are not even your age for normal retirement. So 161 gets paid back to age 60. So technically you can't start until age 65 with, if it's a vested benefit with Plan C, right? But your frozen benefit, you could have started at age 60, but they're merged together. So you wait until 65, we start to pay you, but we pay you all the way back to age 60, those 5 years for Local 161. So you do get those 5 years added in when you start at 65.
So Casey, I have a question.
Sure.
They can't apply for that benefit at age 60 though, right? Because ours says 65, they have to wait until they're 65 to get that
Yes,
benefit at
yes.
age 60?
Yep.
Okay, but they get a
But
fund, a lump sum back.
yeah, but we pay obviously the lump sum back because that is your benefit earned from 161.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead.
Scott, Casey, there is a question in the chat, and the question is, are pension benefits only available for married people?
No.
No, not at all. The pension, as long as it's a vested credit, a vested benefit, is you the participant. That's your benefit. If you're married and you want to, your spouse would like to have a benefit as well. Hold on, I'm saying this wrong. You and your spouse would like to elect the J&S, then that's just an additional option, a different option, but that benefit is for you, the participant.
I'd like to add something to that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to answer that question further, yeah, you don't have to be married to receive a pension benefit, but by law, your spouse is required, you are required to provide, or your spouse, if you decide that you want that 60-month CNL option, meaning you don't want to provide for your spouse after you die, they have to sign off on that. They have to get that document notarized. So they have to agree. If your spouse does not agree, if your spouse says, I want a benefit after you die, then you do have to make a selection of that 50% or that 75% J&S option, because by law, your spouse is entitled to part of that pension benefit should you die. Now, if you both agree that, as Casey was saying, that you don't want that benefit for your spouse, you can elect the 60-month CNL option, meaning there's no reduced amounts for a spousal option, but your spouse has to sign off that they agree that they agree not to receive a spousal option benefit, and it has to be notarized. So there are steps that you will need to take, but as far as being single or married, doesn't matter. It's your benefit. If you're married, then you have to make a choice on whether to select that J&S option or waive the J&S option, and that waiver is from your spouse, not from you. That waiver of that option has to be your spouse waiving the option. So if we have a marriage certificate on file and you select that 60-month CNL because you do not want to provide your spouse with a benefit, then within the application, we also then need to see those documents signed and notarized. If we don't, we'll reject it, and we'll tell you the reasons why.
Scott, there are two other questions. Tagging on to that first question, they want to know, what if you're not married? Can the benefit go to a sibling or
Yes.
non-married partner?
Yes. Yeah, but remember this. Yes, it can. You can, if you're not married, you can choose anybody you want as a beneficiary, but you're going to choose, if again, that 60-month CNL is is that for a single option or a spouse who waives, it only applies to that first 60 months of you receiving your benefit. So for example, if you're unmarried and you have a best friend you want to leave it to, you put that person, and I encourage everybody today to designate a beneficiary. We can send you the forms, make sure you have a beneficiary on file before you pass away, because so many things can happen afterwards. But to answer the question, if you're single, you have a best friend, you put that best friend as your beneficiary. If you die within the first 60 months of receiving your benefit, that beneficiary, just like your spouse who waived, that beneficiary will receive the remaining monies up to that 60th month. So if you die within that first 2 years, then whoever's designated your beneficiary will receive payment up to 3 years and nothing more. It stops at 60 months. However, if you've designated your best friend as your beneficiary and you have been receiving your benefit for 200 months, then there is no benefit available after you die. Because once you die and it's outside of that 60 months, no beneficiary, nobody's eligible for the remainder of that benefit because there is no remainder. You've already satisfied the 60 months. If you die in that 61st month, there is no benefit available to any beneficiary.
I would like to add, just like Scott said, to please, if you do not have beneficiary on file for pension, to please do so. On our website, we have the beneficiary forms. You can email them back to this pension email address that we gave you. Just quickly, if you're not married and you do not have a beneficiary on file, the next in line is parents. If no parents, children.
No, it's the other way.
Children, I'm so sorry. If no children, parents. If no parents, the benefit is nobody's. The benefit dies. Nobody gets it. No sister, no brother, no estate. So
Unless
it's
you
very,
designate.
very important that you leave a beneficiary on file just in case.
Right. You know, one of the things I've seen, and Casey and I have been involved in this a few times already, where somebody is married, they get divorced, but they leave their ex-spouse as a beneficiary on the account. If they die, and there is a pension benefit due, no will, they can will anything they want, but it does not override the plan rules in that if they're not married at the time of their death, somebody is listed as a beneficiary, that person will receive that benefit if there is one. So we have seen cases where somebody did not change their beneficiary. They left the beneficiary of their ex-spouse as a beneficiary, and that beneficiary receives the benefit even if there are children. Am I correct, Casey?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And we've seen this and we've been involved, not that we can do anything, but we've been involved in major disputes with families who said, but that's his ex-spouse. Here's the divorce documents. It does not matter. If the person left their ex-spouse as the beneficiary and failed to change it to somebody else or remove that beneficiary and they die, that beneficiary has a 100% right to the benefit, even if there are children involved. So the one thing I want to stress to everybody is keep up with your beneficiaries. As Casey said, the document is online. You know, you can send it, we can email it to you, but please make sure you have one. And if you have not registered to use the website, please register to use the website, because you can see your account on the website, and you'll see who's listed as your beneficiary. And please keep up with that. We've heard a few horror stories in the past and been involved in a few where the will of the participant at the time they put that person in as a beneficiary may have been right, but if they failed to make a change because their life changed, it may not have been right at the time of their death, and they may not have even realized it. So please keep up with beneficiaries. It's one of the most important things that we can tell you today.
There are two other questions. What if you die before you start collecting your pension, before age 65?
Mhm.
And the other one is, how is the pension lump sum calculated? How is the
Sure,
lump
I
sum
can,
payment
I
calculated?
can talk about the lump sum. So going back to the merger, again, effective date was 1/1/05. That local 161 merged into the national plan C. Normal retirement age is 60. For the national plan C, it's 65. So going back, how you can get that lump sum, the national plan, the trustees were already given a master list with the term amount, how much your pension, if you were vested, how much your pension was worth at 161. So we have that. So all we do is for the 161 lump sum, we take that amount, times it by how many months, and then we add interest to it. The interest changes every year, so now, and our actuaries and fund counsel give us that interest rate. So that's how the lump sum is added.
And with regards to the pre-retirement, if somebody passes away, excuse me, if somebody passes away before their eligibility or before retirement age, and they are eligible, a benefit could still be available. So if you're single and you pass away before you are able to get that benefit, but you were also vested in the plan, like you're eligible at the time of your death because you've met the credit requirements, but you did not yet meet the age requirements. If you've got a beneficiary on file and you're single, that beneficiary can apply for that benefit. And Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, the month after you pass away, regardless of whether you would have been 65 or not. So if you are 50 and you are vested in the plan and you die at age 50 and you have a beneficiary on file, that beneficiary can apply for your benefit the month after you pass away. Casey, am I correct on that?
Yes, a beneficiary, as long as it's not the spouse.
Right. If you're unmarried. Now,
Yeah,
if
if
you're
you're unmarried,
married,
we should say, yeah.
right, that only applies to single. If you're married and you have a pre-retirement, if you're eligible for a benefit at age 65, your spouse cannot apply for that benefit until you would have been eligible to apply for that benefit. So if you're vested and you die at age 50, your spouse cannot apply for that plan, for that benefit until you would have been age 65. And that applies overall. So if you're 60 or if you're vested at the time of your death, or you were eligible for a benefit because you met the credit requirement but not the age requirement, your spouse can apply for that benefit only when you would have been eligible yourself to apply for that benefit. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about what Casey had said regarding the lump sum or about a pre-retirement death benefit? Okay. So what you see on your screen now are contacts. If you have any questions about your pension, you'll see Casey's contact information. I would recommend sending it to John Blondak. If you have any issues or questions with your pension benefit, you can CC Casey if you like, or myself. And you can send a request for an estimate at that pension email address that I provided earlier. If you have questions about contributions, you see there's a contact there. I would still recommend that you send any questions about a missing contribution. For example, I worked on this project. I don't see this project in my work history. One of the things you can do online through our website is see the contributions that are coming in on your behalf. So if you go online and you run a work history for yourself and you say, I know I work for this project, but I don't see it here, send me an email and I will look at it, and then we'll start the process of having you complete a form so that we can contact the employer to find out where those contributions are. So in that respect, please contact myself. And as always, if you find that we are not giving you the proper service or not responding to you properly, our boss, Ann Zeisler, who's the executive director's email extension is there. You can give her a call and certainly complain. We hope you never have to do that, but if you do, we understand. We'll always try to do our best for all of you. But you have that option there too. But again, these are our contacts here. And I think, for the most part, unless anybody has any other questions, or maybe if you think of other questions, after this meeting, please feel free to contact myself or Casey. And we will make sure to answer those questions for you. I know this is a lot of information.
Scott, there is one last question in the chat. A participant asking, how has COVID affected work days for 2020? What if you have less than 37.5 days this year? Is
Okay.
there some kind of exception because of the pandemic?
Yes.
That's a
Now,
great question.
yeah, and see if you can follow this, because we spoke briefly about the break-in service rule earlier. So this year, if you worked less than 37.5 days, you would have incurred a break-in service. But the trustees have implemented kind of a fail-safe for those who are in danger of experiencing a permanent break-in service. So what they said was, this year, if you did not work 37.5 days, but in 2021, you came back and you earned some sort of credit. Casey, correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
some sort of credit in 2021, then you would not incur a break-in service for 2020.
Yes, as long as you got the 37.5.
Right.
In
So you have to come back and
2021.
work that 37.5
Yes.
days, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you do that next year in 2021, which we certainly hope that you can, then you will not incur that break-in service for 2020. However, if in 2021, you come back and you only work 20 days under an agreement that requires your employer to submit pension contributions, then you will incur that break-in service unless the trustees decide something next year for 2021. But as of today, there is relief for 2020, provided in 2021, you come back and work at least 37.5 days and don't incur any break-in service. And at that point, if you don't need clarification on that, or there are no other questions, I think we can move to annuity. If Natasha, are there any other questions, or anybody have their hands up?
I see an annuity question, so we'll answer that when we come
Okay.
in.
Oh, I have chat too. Okay. All right. So then, again, here's some contact information. I recommend you send your inquiries for pension to the pension@IATSE.NBF.org email address. You can certainly register on the website. If you don't know your National Benefit Fund ID, you can contact us. We'll give that to you, but you can use your Social Security number. I urge everybody to register to use the website. We are working on being able to post the credits on the website. We are not there yet, unfortunately. So if you do have any questions about your credits, whether you're vested or what you need to vest, please send those questions to the pension@IATSE.NBF.org email address. And, with that said, that's pension. Does anybody have any questions? Veronica, are you thoroughly confused?
No.
Okay. All right. So
No,
again,
I'll have a question at the end.
okay. So again, if anybody has any questions, send those to pension@IATSE.NBF.org. We'll answer those as we get them. And I think at this point, we can move on to annuity. Casey, are you ready for annuity?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to put up annuity slide. Once I get there. Sorry, my mouse is doing funky things, and there it is. Can you all see that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So starting off, I'm going to turn this over to Casey, but here's a list of our contacts. You'll see the same contacts you had for pension. You can also have for annuity. Okay, and here's just some more contact information for you. Like the pension, we have a specific email address for annuity questions, and that is annuity@IATSE.NBF.org. Or you can call the interactive voice message. I recommend just sending an email to the annuity if you have questions about annuity. So I'm going to turn it over to Casey, and then we're going to go through the slides, and she's going to summarize the slides and kind of tell you. This is an easy one, so hopefully you'll get through this one. Casey, it's all yours.
Okay. So I would like to start with, there's nothing unique regarding the 161 merger into the Nationals Annuity Fund. There's no master list. There's nothing unique such as pension. So I just wanted to put that out there. So everything we speak about is regarding National Annuity Fund. Okay. So annuity is a bit different than pension, although they are both retirement funds. Annuity is a defined contribution, meaning that as soon as your employer submits $1 on your behalf, you are vested for that. Okay. You're eligible. You're vested for that. That is yours. It doesn't take a certain age. It doesn't take a certain time. There is an eligibility process that we'll get into, but I just wanted to explain the difference. Annuity is a defined contribution, which is you're vested right away, versus a pension, which is a defined benefit, and you must vest and become a certain age. So those are the differences with that. Okay, right now our record keeper is Wells Fargo. We have been with them since December 1st, 2015. Somebody had, somebody had asked about switching over. So we are going to the principal group. Wells Fargo is merged with them, only the retirement side. This has nothing to do with the banking side. So just the retirement side. We don't have an exact date, but they are aiming for the spring of 2021. We do have well over 80,000 active balances with Wells Fargo. We have a very, very large account. They have a large account with us. So let's talk about collective bargaining agreement. So the employer that you work for has an obligation to pay a certain percentage on your behalf to the fund. Once we receive that, hold on, this is where I get a little bit, Scott.
So essentially, under the annuity fund, if your employer submits 3% or more of your wage to your annuity fund, you then also have the option to submit a 401k contribution. So if they're not submitting at least 3%, you don't have that 401k component attached to the annuity fund. But if they are doing 3% or more on that agreement, you do have that option to submit pre-tax salary deferrals from your paycheck, and you can coordinate that. There's a form, 401k form, that you would fill out, that you would give to your employer. You would keep a copy, and I believe one goes to the payroll company. And once we receive all the documents signed, then we could also accept the 401k annuity, the salary deferral amounts from your paycheck from the employer / payroll company submitting them.
So a lot of you work for multiple employers. So this would have to be done with each employer. Okay, so you can't just fill out one and think it's good and set. each employer would have to approve it and fill out the salary agreement deferral form.
Right, and I believe under, if it's a payroll company such as EP, Cast and Crew, if it's a payroll company who's processing your payroll, the one form will suffice at the payroll companies. But if you're working for an employer and they don't use the payroll company, then you will need one for every single payroll company. And you can usually check that out with the production office, the accounting office, they'll tell you.
Just to add a little bit to that, and then Scott, if you would do that last bullet point. So annuity and 401k, it's the same account under Wells Fargo right now, but once you get in there, you'll see there's different lines, there's different buckets that show you employer contributions. It shows you employee contributions, which is your 401k. So everything is separate, and then it gives you a final balance. For those of you that haven't seen that yet, or aren't part of the 401 program. So it is separate, and then together your balance. Along with creating an account for the national website, please, if you haven't already, create an account for Wells Fargo and manage your investments. We'll get into that more in later, but it's very important to follow your balance and see what's happening.
Right. Excuse me, on that last link, that last bullet there, if you work on any motion picture production, you have the option of a pre-tax salary deferral. But for those agreements, there's an HCE limit per employer of $130,000 in 2020. And what that means is, if in 2020 you've made at least $130,000 or more, you will not be able to contribute to the 401k fund in 2021. You are considered a highly compensated employee, which is what an HCE means. And if you are deemed a highly compensated employee in 2020, you will not be able to defer any part of your salary in 2021. Does anybody have any questions about that? That's an IRS imposed limit, and that number changes every year, or it could change every year. Sometimes it remains the same in the following year. Sometimes it goes up, but it never goes down that I've seen. And as you know, we're talking about, normal retirement age is 65. You can retire early, 55, depending upon what the work history is. And there are no loans permitted on this account. I'll put it over to Casey.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so one of the programs that the trustees adopted back in 2010 was a hardship. We all face hardships, especially now. This program allows you, again, it's not a loan, but this hardship program allows you, under about 6 reasons, hardship reasons specified by the IRS, with proof, you would be allowed to take a percentage of your annuity balance. So effective 2019, all employer contributions received for work performed starting March, so March 19 going forward, all contributions are hardship eligible. So that gives you more money in your hardship bucket, as I call it, for these hard times. Let's see. Calling the retirement services, there's our phone number, there's our email address again. Any questions about eligibility, about an application, anything, feel free to contact us there. Let's see. Oh.
May I just add something? What I was told, you can take 20% of your annuity to borrow because hardship, and as long as you return it within 3 years, you'll not have to pay any taxes.
Just so we're clear, that is a provision of the CARES Act, and we'll get to that. That is not a provision of the plan. Because of these times under COVID-19, excuse me, the government has issued some mandates regarding to the CARES Act, and that is one of them, which we will discuss. That's not part of the plan, but it is during this time until the end of this year. So to that point, I'm going to turn it over to Casey, but understand we will get to that provision when we get to when you can apply and what you can take out and how you can pay it back, because that's not in these slides. But go ahead, Casey.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No worries.
I just want to talk about eligibility, okay?
Mhm.
So besides a hardship program, in regards to eligibility and taking a partial or full distribution of your annuity fund, if you are 55 years or younger, you would have to have no employer contributions for 6 months, 6 consecutive calendar months. Once those 6 months pass, then you're eligible for an early annuity withdrawal. There will be tax implications. The IRS withholds 10% at the end of the year. You'll get a 1099 tax form to file. And at the time of your distribution, it's an automatic 20% withheld for federal taxes.
Can I
State-
interject?
Sure.
I just want to just clarify something. You will always have to pay income tax on the funds that you're taking out. On a normal distribution, as Casey said, 20% mandatory federal withholding. You have to designate whether you want a state withholding on that amount or not. Normal times, outside of this COVID period, normal times, the IRS is going to impose a 10% early penalty withdrawal tax. They don't take that out. We don't do anything with that 10%. We have nothing to do with it. When you file your taxes next year, you're going to get a 1099 form from Wells Fargo indicating that you had withdrawn some monies. On that form, it's going to indicate any taxes that were paid or not paid. But in this case, you'll have, on a normal distribution, you'll have monies taken out. But that is when that 10% excise tax will apply when you file your taxes. This fund does not take 10% additional monies out. That's only applied to when you file your taxes. Now, as we know, as Veronica had said, the 10% penalty is going to be waived if the withdrawal is COVID related. Now, nobody's asking for proof of COVID related withdrawals. So on our application, if it's a normal termination, as Casey's going into now, you're 55, you haven't had monies taken out, it's not COVID related. It's based on termination. It's an early retirement. So you may get that 10% penalty taken out because, it really does depend on if the IRS says, why did you take it out? We have nothing to do with that part of it. And I want to make that clear. For us, you're applying for it. If you are eligible based on plan rules, then you get it. If you're eligible for a normal or an early because you're out of work and you haven't had contributions come in, you can certainly do that, but taxes will come out. Casey, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I just wanted to be clear that everybody knew that 10% excise tax penalty is not something this fund imposes, and we don't take it out of your payments. All we do is handle the withholding taxes because you're required to still pay withholding taxes, but the IRS is the one who takes care of the 10% excise tax, whether you get penalty or no penalty. That's what they do, not us.
Sure. So again, age 55 or younger, you must have 6 consecutive months of no employer contributions. then you become eligible to take a partial or full distribution. For those who are age 55 to 65, you must have no employer contributions for 2 consecutive months. So just 2 months, all the other same taxes, everything is the same. For those of you, again, I want to speak about reaching 59 and a half. But again, outside of COVID, outside of the CARES Act with waiving the 10% excise penalty, once you reach age 59, you're eligible for a withdrawal without the IRS penalty. So at age 59 and a half, if you have annuity employer contributions and you were part of the 401k salary deferred, you still have to meet eligibility to take out employer contribution money. But at age 59 and a half, if you do have 401k salary in your account, you may take that out while you're still working. And the 10% excise tax will be waived at the end of the year. For those of you 59 and a half and older, again, you must meet eligibility with your employer to take employer contributions. But if you have 401k money, that's the money you can take at that age. Once you reach age 65, you can take a withdrawal a month later. You can take a partial or full withdrawal, and it's only 1 month later. Okay, so that's at age 65.
And just to, excuse me, I'm sorry. And just to add, or to finalize this part, what Casey just discussed was normal retirement age. Withdrawing benefits under a termination, or you stopped working, or this has nothing to do with hardship, this has nothing to do with COVID. These are the normal plan rules with regards to when you're eligible to withdraw funds from your annuity fund account. The next slide Casey is going to talk about is if you're not eligible for this, like if you're 55, but you've had contributions in the last 2 months, you're not eligible for a normal distribution because you haven't met that requirement. So we touched on hardships. The fund implemented hardship withdrawals as of January of 2010. So for those people who do not qualify because they're still working and they need funds, and this is where COVID-19 comes in, this is where you're able to take funds out under the hardship provision because you have not met any of these requirements. So Casey's going to talk about the hardship provisions, how you can take it out, and what you can present as proof. Now for COVID, we don't require proof that you've lost money or anything like that. For COVID related incidents, we don't, but that is one of the hardship provisions.
Sure. Right before I get into hardship, I would like to just discuss one other withdrawal. We call it a required minimum distribution. So it used to be age 70 and a half. Some of you may be familiar with that number. You heard it, it's April 1st, after your 70 and a half birthday, after your 70 and a half date. It's now moved to 72. So the government has, the IRS has changed that to 72. So what that is for those of you who have never touched your annuity and you still have an annuity account and you're approaching age 72, the government says, okay, we want these people to start taking out some money, moving the money around. Obviously, they want to tax you. So you'll hear from Wells Fargo directly and the fund office. Wells Fargo sends out a letter with an application to those who fall under this group. And it's a very small application. And on there, it tells you how much you have to take out that year. Again, because of the CARES Act, it was waived this year, so no RMDs have to be done this year. So as of now, next year going forward, it's age 72. It's a percentage. It has to do with your age, if married, your spouse's age, and your balance. Wells Fargo does a formula and they put the amount on the application that you have to take. You can always take more, but that's the minimum amount you have to take for that year. So that comes at the end of the year. We usually start it from the middle, but it must be taken out obviously by the end of that calendar year. So I just wanted to mention that. But now we can move on to the hardships. So hardship is definitely there for us when we're in need and you're not eligible for a regular distribution. The hardest part that some participants don't understand is that when taking a hardship, you're limited to funds. It's not your entire balance. Okay, so for argument's sakes, if your account balance is $10,000 and your hardship available balance is only $7,000, again, that's because prior to March of 2019, only 3% was safe harbored from your employer's contribution. Okay, so from March of 19 going forward, 100% is hardship eligible. So the balance, your hardship balance is starting to pick up more. But those are the reasons why there's a difference between your full balance and your hardship balance. So your hardship balance, these are the reasons: unpaid medical expenses. Along with an application, you have to have proof. So the proof of the following: unpaid medical expenses, purchase of a primary residency, payment of tuition for college, related education expenses. Just to stop there, we have a guideline, we have a packet. Each one of these gives you specifics, tells you what exactly you need. It's very, very helpful. Prevention of eviction if you rent, or foreclosure if you own. If you have a death, there's burial and funeral expenses. It's, again, in the explanation, it discusses it's for dependents. So if you're very close to your neighbor, or your cousin passes away, unfortunately, those are not members we can pay the expense for. So there is a list of the dependent who you can help out with the funeral expenses. Expenses for repair or damage of your principal residence due to casualty. This isn't because you need a new roof because of wear and tear. This isn't because you need a new gutter system, or you want to put pavers in your walkway. So unfortunately, this, and you'll see in the proof, there's casualty insurance. You go through your insurance, homeowners insurance, and we get all sorts of proof along with it. Same with the federally declared disaster. So along with the hurricanes we've been having lately, the trustees have adopted this. This was just a new change recently.
But it has to be a declared
Yeah,
disaster. It
right.
can't just be a hurricane came through, my door came off. You have to,
Yeah.
it has to be declared a federal disaster area by the government. And if so, then you're able to submit claims against that to withdraw funds from your annuity account.
And then the newest one is expenses and losses due to COVID-19. Now, since March, this is 99% of what most people need a hardship for, because so many people are out of work. Like Scott had mentioned earlier, there is no proof. This is the only reason out of the list above that you do not have to send proof of, okay? We have a new application. In this hardship application, there's a big paragraph in it, and you would just check due to COVID, and you're confirming all that it says there. But no proof is needed for this. And this, as of now, is going until the end of the year. Also, by checking that, if you're under age 59 and a half, that's where you will not be penalized for the 10% excise tax at the end of the year. Staying with the COVID.
Well, can I clarify that?
Sure.
Yeah, the one thing is we don't, like I said before, we don't determine whether or not you're going to be eligible to waive that 10% or not. We don't have anything to do with that. And that is primarily handled when you file your taxes. So I don't know how it's going to be with the CARES Act. All we know, and this is what our counsel has said, is all we know is we don't know whether the IRS is going to ask you specific questions, whether something was COVID related. We don't know any of that. All we know is that the IRS says if you withdraw funds from a retirement fund early due to COVID-19 reasons, the 10% excise penalty, the early withdrawal penalty can be waived. What that requirement is as far as proof, even if anybody has ever asked for proof, we don't know. We can't even guide you on that because we don't know. I don't even think there is guidance on that. So as far as I know, and as far as our counsel knows, that if you withdraw funds early today and it is due to COVID-19 reasons, the 10% early penalty withdrawal should be waived next year when you file your taxes. And I'm sure that there'll be something within the 1040 or all these other forms that we have to fill out for taxes that asks you these questions, but I can't guarantee that because we just don't know. So I just wanted to make sure you knew, that everybody on this call knows, we don't determine whether that 10% is waived or not. That is something that you deal with when you file your taxes. And I'm sorry, Casey, I just wanted to make that clear so we
Sure,
don't
yeah.
get questions on whether somebody is making sure that they get their 10% waived. We have nothing to do with it. The only thing we do is deal with the holding tax. 10% early penalty is when you file your taxes next year. Sorry, Casey.
Sure, no problem. So I had mentioned before, if you aren't already, to please sign into Wells Fargo. And I have a phone number as well. I'd like to share. I will share that before the call ends. And this phone number, you can actually call Wells Fargo if you're having trouble setting up your account online. Also, this is the phone number you can call to change investments. Okay, that fund has nothing to do with your investments, so you can call Wells Fargo directly. I'll give that to you. I'll put it in the chat before.
However, just so we're clear, even though the fund doesn't have anything to do with your investments, when you first start getting contributions for the annuity fund, they will be put into an annuity fund stable. It's a stable fund. All your funds will go there into this one account until you change it. So a stable fund just means it really doesn't go up or down. It just kind of stays stable. And if you never go in to change it, your funds will consistently and constantly be put into that fund. But if you do go into the Wells Fargo site and you do see what those investment selections are and you make your choices, we can't help you with that. Best bet is to get a financial advisor if you need one. But once you make the changes and you put certain percentages on certain funds, that is how all the monies going into your annuity fund account will be allocated in the future. But today, if you haven't made a change, they're all going to a stable fund.
Casey, Scott, there are a few questions. Local 61 has a 401k plan with Local 52. They want to know if it's separate from our
Yes,
plan. And
it's separate.
also, they want to know the difference between the 401k and the annuity. I think there's a little confusion there.
So yeah, the 52 and 161 totally separate from the NBF. It's an entirely separate 401k account, so it has nothing to do with here unless those contributions are coming here because you worked under an agreement where the contributions come here. And I actually so quickly forgot that second question.
I got it. So
Okay, Case.
you can add to it, but I wanted to give you the basic difference between an annuity and a 401k. The annuity basically is from employer contributions. So it has nothing to do with you or I or anybody, only the employer and your agreement that you're working under. The employer is must submit those contributions into your annuity. So you can't add to that. The 401k part is the employee portion that comes from your paycheck, a percentage. So Scott, if you have more, that's the easiest way I describe it.
Yeah, so to Casey's point, yes, the annuity fund, based on the agreement you're working under, those employers are required to submit whatever they negotiate into your annuity fund account on your behalf. And if, as we were talking about before, you're able to participate in the 401k, the salary deferral, you can direct either a percentage or a flat amount of your paycheck pre-tax, meaning if you earn 1,000 and you want 200 to go into your 401k, you're only going to get taxed on the $800. So it goes in pre-taxed. That gets submitted separately on a different report by your employer because they're deducting it from your paycheck. But that's the difference between the annuity fund is a combination of both the employer contributions and the employee contributions. So the annuity fund is one account. You have the employer contributions, which are based on the agreement you're working under. And then you have the employee salary deferrals that you can elect to have pre-tax contributions deducted from your paycheck on a weekly basis, up to 85% of your salary. So that's the difference between the two. And you can't add to the employer side, and the employer can't add to your employee side because it's coming from your paycheck. So they're two separate funds, but they're all under the annuity fund account, essentially. Does that answer that question? Okay. Okay.
Okay, we'll move forward.
Right, I see a question from Ray. Is the Wells Fargo annuity a 401k? And I hope that what we just said answers that question, that the annuity fund at Wells Fargo, soon to be principal, is a combination. The account is a combination of the employer contributions and the employee contributions. And as Casey said, when you register and you log into the Wells Fargo site, you're going to see there are buckets. It's a perfect word. There are buckets. One is an employer contribution bucket. The other is an employee contribution bucket. And you'll be able to see that if you log into the account. Sorry, go ahead, Keith.
Sure. When you do have the access, and I do hope most of you are have access to Wells Fargo, your own account, you'll see that there's a retirement calculator. It picks up what's in your account already for annuity, and then you can go ahead and put in any pensions that you may have from other locals, any company, along with maybe your pension plan C, and then Social Security. So you can add all these, put them in there, and it gives you an idea at retirement age, and you pick the age of what you would be bringing in on a monthly basis. So it's fun to play with. It's good to know, have an idea. One important thing in regards to annuity, Wells Fargo has stopped mailing paper statements every quarter. They used to come out 4 times a year. Right now, they are just doing 1 quarter per year. It's the 3rd quarter. The reason why they chose that quarter is because we have other notices legally at that time of year that goes in with it. So the third quarter is the only time a year you will get a paper statement unless you already opt for email. It will be an emailed statement. At any time, you can go on to your account. You could ask us at the fund office. We can go back and look at statements. We can print it for you. They are there. They just, Wells Fargo is not physically mailing them. And we spoke briefly about the transitioning of Wells Fargo retirement going to Principal Financial Group. We don't have much information yet. We know March of spring, I'm sorry, of 2021. And Wells Fargo is very good at communicating. They have great communication pieces, and you will receive them in the mail or email, however you opt for information on your Wells Fargo account. So stay tuned, and you'll definitely be getting information from us and Wells Fargo.
That's all we have on the retirement side. If Casey, can you just check that phone number? I have a different phone number and I have a different one in the actual slide. So I want to make sure that
Oh, sure.
that
Let
we
me
give them
call
the
it.
right phone number.
Yep.
So again, just to recap annuity, we recommend you register on our website. You can see your balance on our website as of the close of business of the prior day. You could also, as I mentioned for pension, go on our website and look at the contributions coming in from any employer that's required to submit annuity fund contributions on your behalf and see if those contributions have been credited to you. And also make sure, if you're ever in doubt, that you say, I should have more money in my account, we can send you a work history of the annuity fund contributions, as well as what we've received on your behalf for 401k. So as much as we'd like to think our employers are perfect, they aren't. Sometimes they leave somebody off. Sometimes they put in incorrect social. Sometimes they don't submit contributions timely. Just advice both on pension, annuity, as well as health. Make sure that if you're working under an agreement where contributions are coming here, just keep on top of those contributions sooner than later. I've had instances where people from 20 years ago worked on a project and they're looking now and they say, but I know I worked on this project. Projects are closed, they go away, people go away. And it's very, very hard to validate and get information from any employer once they've shut the doors. So just always keep up with that. Oh, thank you. Good, because that's what I had. Okay. And I see there's a question here. Will there be a blackout period when Wells Fargo switches to the principal? Yes, there will be a blackout period. They will notify you of what that is. We're trying to keep it as minimal as possible. It may be a day, it may be 3 days. We're not sure yet, but they will let you know what that blackout period is from when monies from Wells goes to principal. So there will be that blackout period, definitely, because they need time to set up all those accounts. And from what I understand, the principal site does offer some additional features that Wells Fargo doesn't have. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of that. We haven't seen that yet, but we're looking forward to all of that, and that should be coming up soon. So with annuity as an overall, you can withdraw monies if you qualify under a normal or termination, you stop working and with the guidelines that Casey had said before, or under a hardship provision, and there are also guidelines there. Yes, to Ray, you can withdraw 100% of your annuity balance at age 65, and it is anytime you take money out of your account, whether it's under a hardship provision, early termination, age 65, it is all taxable income. It's never not taxable. And, but you know, to Veronica's point, to what we were saying before, the CARES Act does allow for the waiver of the 10% excise early penalty next year when you file your taxes, but don't call us about that because we don't know. We don't know what the government is going to do to prove it. If anything, we have nothing to do with it. We don't take that money out of your account. And one of the things also that I want to mention is just, again, keep on top of what it is you guys are working under. You can always call your local. If you don't know whether you should be getting annuity contributions or pension contributions, call your local, get a copy of the agreement, find out. Because, you know, so like I said, sometimes it's easy to figure this out sooner than later. Does anybody have any questions about pension and or annuity before we move on to the retiree benefits under the health plan?
I do. This is Veronica. First of all, I'm thrilled to hear that they changed to 70 years. So once I turn 70, which I did already, could I work full time without being, after 2 months of not working, could I work full month?
So I
After
think you may
April
be
1st.
confusing. Wait, Veronica, I think you may be confusing the two plans. Under a pension plan, under this plan, at age 65, if you start to collect your benefit, but you're still working, and you work 8 or more days in a month, then your pension benefit will be suspended for 1 month for every month that you work 8 or more days. At age 70 and a half, I don't believe this has changed. At age 70, is it, Casey, 70 or 70 and a half? That if you're at 70 and a half or 70, you can work any number of days and you
No,
will
but
not
that is,
be.
I'm sorry, there is the confusion. Before they said that after it's 1 year from April 1st after you are 70 and a half. And earlier she said that it was changed to 70 years.
That's
Is
the
that
annuity fund.
only annuity? But the pension working, it's still 1 year after 70 and a half.
I believe so. Casey, you're muted.
Sorry, guys. Pension is changing as well to 72. Again, it's the April 1st following your age 70 and a half. Okay, so if you turned age 70 and a half in May of this year, you have until April of next year to start with withdrawing. Again, I'm talking pension right now. Okay, so if you want to go back to work now and you're not 70 and a half, you can only work 7 days, the max 7 days a month.
So it is 70 and a half or 70? I'm still confused.
But okay, let's find out which fund. Are you referring to pension?
Pension, yes.
Okay, well, it's 70 and a half. And then it's the April 1st after you turn 70 and a half.
That you have to start taking a pension.
And then you can work as much as you want.
Yeah, but only a year after the 1st of April after you're 70 and a half. I thought that was changed to 70, not 70 and a half.
Wait, let's get it clear. Wait, Veronica, hold on.
I'm going to write you an example in the chat screen.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things, I think. So here's the deal. Let's talk about.
Can I ask? I don't, it's up to you if you want to give it, but can I ask what your date of birth is?
Of course, of course. I just turned 70 on October 16. I turned 70, so my date of birth is 10/16/1950.
Okay, thank you. I'll be right with you.
I appreciate, thank you.
Hi, Veronica, and hi, everybody.
Hi, Jill.
It's Jill here. I'm curious, though, Veronica, you're asking your question, though, but you're an MPI person, right?
Oh, true.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so it's different than national, you think?
So
It is.
It's a very
It
different.
is different.
Then never mind. I'm sorry to waste your time.
And, but I'm curious, do folks who are on the MPI plan, do they do the annuity through the National Benefit Fund, or is that separate too?
No, I don't think. I don't know.
I don't know either. I have to be honest. I don't know if there are agreements
Included
that
in
come to the
annuity?
NBF for
Okay,
annuity.
all right. But I
can
think
certainly
for
find
pension,
out.
Veronica, you're on the MPI plan, which is a totally separate plan, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, she actually said that in the very beginning, that she was part of MPI and she was going to stay and listen. But I mean, it does bring up a good conversation in that, you know, for pension and annuity, the required begin date is the same, right, Casey? It's going to go to 72, you said. So if you haven't collected a pension by age 72, I think we lost Casey. If you haven't started collecting a pension, just like if you haven't had any withdrawal from the annuity fund, you will be required to withdraw funds the April 1st following your 72nd birthday. So that's the same. I guess what Casey was saying was the same for both pension and annuity. That's just when you need to start taking funds out of annuity or when you need to start your pension benefit. Some people do delay their pension benefit start until they stop working. What I was also referring to before was that if you are taking a pension today, you're age 65, you started your pension, but you haven't stopped working. If you are working while receiving a pension benefit and you work and you're age 65 or older, if you're working 8 or more days, your pension benefit will be suspended for 1 month for every month that you work 8 or more days, up to the age of, Casey, is that 70 and a half or 72 now? You're muted. If I knew pantomime, I'd be able to hear. You're muted.
Sorry,
okay.
guys. Yes, it's 72 now, moving
Okay.
forward.
Okay, so up to the age of 72, between 65 and 72, if you're collecting a pension benefit under the National Benefit Fund, Plan C, and you work 8 or more days in a month, then for every month that you work 8 or more days, your pension benefit will be suspended for 1 month. Once you reach the age of 72, there's no more disqualifying employment, which is what that's called. And you can work any number of days in a month, and there is no suspension of pension benefits once you reach that age. But from 65 to 72, it's 1 month for every month you work 80 more days. If you're working if you've retired early from age 55 to 65, that is even more severe. And that is for if you work 1 month. Casey, is it permanently or is it 6 months that they are then suspended for every month that they work?
Yeah, 6 months.
Right. So if you work 8 or more days in a month, your benefit is suspended for 6 months for every month that you work 8 or more days.
You do not get it back.
Right.
That's a bit mean.
Yes. But you know, you're still working, so you're getting the wage at least, you know. But yeah, so there's disqualifying employment on both those ends. So you're required to take it by a certain date if you haven't, and that's the age of 72. And if you have, then under pension, there are disqualifying employment guidelines there that we just went over. But under annuity, you can take out a full or partial balance. You could also annuitize your benefit under the annuity fund, which when we switch to the principal will be a much easier process. And what that means is if you have 100,000 in your account and you want to take that 100,000 out in monthly benefit like you do on pension, there's a way they can set that up for you as well. So there's conversation to be had there. So you don't have to take it out as a lump sum or partial. You can take it out in monthly. You can set up a monthly benefit. So with that said, we're done with retirement unless Casey has something.
I do. I just want to mention 2 quick things for those of you thinking about pension and retiring. So I just lost my train of thought. One of them is if you can, if you all of a sudden you get a call and there's a good job, a good show, anything, whatever your line line of work is, you can always call the pension fund and call me, call Scott and say, listen, I got this great gig coming up. Is it okay if I put my pension monthly payment on hold so I can go back to work full time? You absolutely can do that. We'll have you put it in writing. We'll stop your, no suspension, no disqualifying employment. We'll just put you on hold, and then you'll notify us when you're done working. And the month following that, your pension can start up again. So just keep that in mind. That's if you're going to work, obviously, more than 7 days a month. And the other thing is, if you are working the allowable time up until 7 days a month and here out, at the end of the year, we do calculate accrual increases. So your pension, you may be due a small increase for that work that you did throughout the year, and it'll be added to your monthly benefit. So I just wanted to just mention those two small things about working and pension.
Thank you, Casey. So I think we can move on to the retiree on the health side. Casey, thank you for all the information. And if anybody has any questions regarding retirement, send it to the pension email address. You can send it to myself, or you can send it to Casey or John. And then, so let's move on then to the retirement side. Let me just set up my screen here. Okay, and this is where Natasha and I will kind of go hand in hand with this. So first, let's talk about Medicare. And well, we'll talk about the retiree MRP plan. I'll give you some background quickly on this. As everybody knows, if you don't know, for those who don't know, we have a medical reimbursement program in our plan, and that medical reimbursement program allows for participants who receive health contributions in their CAP account to be able to enroll in the medical reimbursement program if they have other coverage. Now, prior to 2013, that other coverage, you were able to enroll in the MRP plan if you had any other type of coverage, meaning veterans coverage, Medicare, you had purchased a plan on your own. You can enroll in the medical reimbursement program using any one of those plans. When the Affordable Care Act came into play, and so did some changes to how we were able to administer some of the funds that we have on the health side. So what that did was it changed the type of coverage that we are able to accept for you to enroll in the medical reimbursement program. So the medical reimbursement program is a health reimbursement account. With that comes certain guidelines. The IRS on September 1st of 2013 said that if you have an HRA, a health reimbursement account, meaning the fund, the only coverage that can be linked or associated with that health reimbursement arrangement account is a coverage that is integrated with an employer plan, meaning if you were covered under another employer plan, meaning your own plan, or another employer plan through your spouse, you can enroll in the medical reimbursement program. However, now because of the ACA, Medicare was no longer accepted for an HRA because it is not an employer plan. VA coverage is not an employer plan. These are all benefits offered elsewhere. So in response to that, the fund created a retiree-only medical reimbursement program. So it said, the fund said, what happens to all, now that we can't accept Medicare coverage to enroll in MRP, what are these retirees going to do? They're working, they have these contributions coming into their account. What are we going to do? So we created this retiree-only medical reimbursement program to respond to the Affordable Care Act's elimination of Medicare as a viable coverage option for MRP. And the only participants who are, the only way you can enroll in this retiree MRP plan is if you have Medicare Parts A and B, or Part C, which is the Medicare Advantage. So if you are enrolled in Medicare, you can enroll in, if you enrolled in Medicare Parts A and B or C, you can enroll in the retiree medical reimbursement program. You know, you can do this in many different ways. You can submit, and Natasha will cut me off if I've said anything incorrectly. You can submit your Medicare card at any point, and we can put it on file. The card copy, front and back, must indicate that you are enrolled in Parts A and B. We can't guide you or tell you when you need to enroll in Medicare. We can't tell you if you're eligible today to enroll in Medicare, or all we can tell you is that if you are enrolled in Parts A and B, submit your card at any point, or you can submit your card along with your enrollment form or statement. And Natasha, am I correct in that?
Yes, or if they
Okay.
have Medicare Advantage. So
Right.
if you don't have, if you're not enrolled in a traditional Medicare plan, you can submit a copy of your Medicare Advantage card in order to enroll in the retiree reimbursement if you qualify.
And just be sure the Medicare Advantage is not a supplemental plan. It's Part C, Medicare Advantage. So you can submit that card in place of A and B. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So again, you can submit that card as soon as you have it, or you can submit it at any quarterly enrollment period. And please, I'm going to preface what I'm about to say and what the explanation I'm about to give by saying that the fund created this plan in response to the Affordable Care Act, but using the guidelines of Medicare secondary payer guidelines. So essentially, to start, Medicare never wants to be your primary payer if they don't have to be. So they say, if you are eligible for other group health coverage because you worked, you become eligible, then Medicare says that you must enroll in that other group health coverage plan as your primary coverage, and Medicare then becomes secondary. For the purposes of this conversation, that is primarily what we are going to discuss, in that if you are eligible for coverage under this plan because you worked and we received contributions on your behalf, that when added to your current cap account equals or exceeds the premium cost of our lowest cost plan, which is C4. That amount today is $902. If, when we add your contributions to your cap account, if it equals or exceeds $902 today, then you are deemed active. If you are deemed active, Medicare rule, that guideline I just said, takes over and says, since you are working and you became eligible for this other group health coverage plan, Medicare says you need to enroll in that other group health coverage plan, meaning C4. Now, you don't have to enroll in C4. What will happen is we will, once we deem you active, because we have your Medicare card on file, we're going to tell you for this upcoming quarter, because you worked and we received contributions, and because we added it to your cap account, your total balance equals $902 or more. We deem you active. You must make a coverage selection, meaning C1, C2, C3, or C4, or you will need to waive your full cap balance to keep Medicare as your primary plan. Now, I know that's kind of it in a nutshell. Before I move on, does anybody have any questions with regards to what I just said and the Medicare secondary payer guidelines with respect to how you will become eligible to either enroll in RMRP or whether you're deemed active? Does anybody have any questions? I'm also looking at the chat. I don't see anything. So I'm going to move on, but I see a question before. Okay, hold on. No, Jill, you're correct. This is only for medical reimbursements. Jill's question was, just want to clarify, this account is only for medical reimbursement and is not Medicare supplemental insurance plan. Correct. The RMRP account is not a benefit. It's a reimbursement account. So that's all that can be done with this account. And that is, and we'll talk about what reimbursements are considered qualified, but it is not a supplemental plan, meaning we don't offer you coverage for anything through this plan. And let me just see, there was a question before. Okay. I know, Ray, you asked the question, are you vested for medical benefits? Now, that's a very broad question. So I'm going to just move forth with the RMRP. And at the end of this, I would say re-ask that question because it's a very broad question and it's hard to answer at this point. So with that, you're eligible to enroll in the RMRP if you're enrolled in Medicare Parts A and B, or as Natasha also added, Part C, which is the Medicare Advantage plan. Submit your card, we get it, we put it in every quarter. We're going to look to see if you're deemed active. And that means we're going to look to see what contributions came in. And we're going to look at your cap account. And we're going to say if you have both work and a cap account and the both of them equal $902 or more, which is the C4 plan premium, then you're deemed active and you must make a coverage selection or waive your full balance. The coverage selection means this plan becomes primary, Medicare becomes secondary. If you waive, Medicare remains primary, but you do not have access to any funds in your retiree account for that quarter that you waived. And I just want to be clear that that is essentially the retiree MRP enrollment process in a nutshell. Natasha, before we get on to the claims and all that, do you have anything to add with respect to the eligibility of RMRP and primary, secondary, and all that?
I just want to say that most participants do not waive their cap balance. You know, they rather enroll in coverage, but it's your preference. When they do waive it, it's just to prevent from having to go to the doctor and say, you know, this quarter Medicare is primary and next quarter the coverage with the national benefit funds is primary. It's to avoid any confusion between Medicare, having Medicare coverage and having our coverage as well.
Right. We never recommend anybody waive, but we can't tell you what to do. And the reason why a lot of people, to Natasha's point, the reason why many people or some people might want to waive their cap balance to keep Medicare as primary is because they have medical issues. They don't want to go, maybe the doctor that you're going to does not accept other coverage, or maybe you have to go to, you know, if you're dealing with a doctor that just accepts Medicare, or you're dealing with a doctor who doesn't accept any other coverage that we're offering, and you need to keep Medicare as primary because of some health issues, that is primarily why people would waive their cap account, because they have underlying issues that if they did go to this plan and then Medicare next coverage and they're still next quarter and they're still working, and it becomes very confusing for a lot of people who do have to go see doctors regularly to have to keep changing the coverage that they have to present every time they go. So to Natasha's point, it becomes very confusing on the part of the participant as well as the provider's office, who you know, may or may not accept this other coverage. So If in doubt, ask the question, let us know. We're always going to let you know when you're deemed active. And then we're always going to let you know when you will need to either enroll in coverage or waive coverage, and the documentation will be there for you to complete when we send you these quarterly statements. So we'll always give you the information. So you'll never be, on a boat alone, not knowing what your status is. So always ask the question too if you're confused, but primarily that is what RMRP is. It is a medical reimbursement program for Medicare retirees only. And because many of us are still working past retirement, Medicare secondary payer guidelines come into play each quarter. And that is where it gets confusing for many people. Does anybody have any questions regarding the eligibility? So you can go into the RMRP plan every other quarter because you're working. You may get more contributions one quarter that make you eligible for active coverage, and the next quarter you may not, and you're eligible you're deemed not active. So let's talk about what happens with those contributions. So you're getting contributions in your account, and the quarter we say you're active, those contributions remain in your cap account, and they can be used for coverage, either all, and then if you choose another plan, you can submit additional monies to enroll in a different plan other than C4, or use them for C4. What happens is, for that quarter, if you enroll in C4, for example, you're in C4. Any balance that you have will be carried over to the next quarter. The next quarter, 6 weeks before, we're going to send you another statement, and we're going to say, here's your starting balance from the prior quarter. Here are your contributions. Now, when we take the starting balance and we add the contributions, if it's less than $902, we're going to tell you you're not deemed active for this upcoming quarter. Your monies will automatically, anything that's in the cap account at that point in time, will automatically be transferred to this retiree MRP plan as of the first of the upcoming coverage quarter. And we're going to give you that date. As of that date, you will then be in the RMRP, the retiree MRP plan for that quarter. Any funds that are in that account can be used for qualified medical expenses. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because each quarter we're going to look at it, we're going to deem you active or not active. Each quarter we're going to say if you're deemed active, use it for coverage or waive it. If you're not deemed active, we're going to transfer it to this retiree MRP plan to use for qualified medical reimbursement expenses and premiums paid.
No, I just want to say that if you were enrolled in, say, C4 in the prior quarter, and you decide that you do want to still have that for the next quarter, you do have the option to continue in that plan.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll be automatically enrolled in RMRP.
And to add to that, thank you, Natasha. I meant to say that. To add to that, we've had situations where the statement does indicate that you are in C4, for example, and you are not deemed active, so you will be enrolled in RMRP the following quarter. If your desire is to remain in C4 for the upcoming quarter instead, you have to make that election. Because if you don't, we're automatically putting you into RMRP, and we're going to tell you that on the statement. So if you want to stay in active coverage with us, you have to make that election. We are not automatically going to keep you there if you are not deemed active. So please, I implore everybody who submits Medicare cards to us, and we look at this account every quarter, I implore you to read the statement in full. And if there's anything that is confusing, just send us an email. And you'll have the email you can send it to at the end of this. But question it, because I'd rather you make the right choice than assume something that may not happen. This plan works a little differently than the other plans. So there's a lot of back and forth, and it can be confusing. And we want to make sure everybody is clear that if you're deemed active because you worked, and your contributions when added to the cap equal $902 or more, you're deemed active, and you must select a coverage option or waive all that money. If you're not deemed active, the monies go into the retiree MRP plan, and so do you as of the first of the upcoming quarter, and you can submit claims for reimbursement as of that date. Anybody have any questions about that? And this page just says exactly what I just said before. And again, so here's another point to make. When you're not deemed active and those funds go to that RMRP count as of the first of the upcoming quarter, as do you, your cap account starts at 0. So please make the distinction. Cap account is an entirely separate Plan C account. The retiree MRP plan is an entirely separate account outside of Plan C. The only way they connect is when you're deemed not active. Okay, so make sure that you understand that a cap account is where all your contributions go to from your employers. It's what determines with your cap balance whether you're deemed active or not. And from there, we deem you active or not active. Active, you stay in Plan C. Not active, you go to RMRP. And they're two totally separate accounts, and the only way they're linked is by whether you're deemed active or not. So if nobody has any questions about that, and you may go by later and say, gosh, I just didn't understand any of that, please send us an email. We'll clarify it for you. Let's talk about Natasha. Well, again, correct me if I say anything out of tune here. So if you are in the retiree MRP plan now, let's just say this quarter you're deemed not active. You didn't work enough and get enough contributions that when added to your cap account did not exceed the 902. So this upcoming quarter, now you're in RMRP. Just so we're clear, any monies that go into the RMRP account are there. They're there. They never get forfeited. They never go away unless you use them. So when you're in Plan C active, like if you were deemed active for a quarter, those monies are still in the retiree MRP plan. Everything that was transferred previous just accumulate there, and you can use them when you're enrolled in the RMRP plan. When you're enrolled in active coverage, unless you have what's deemed excess funds, you don't have the opportunity to use any of the funds in the retiree MRP plan. Okay. And it's something that you need to know. So if you're deemed active for the January to March quarter and you have monies in RMRP, for the January to March quarter, you're in active coverage. The RMRP account is frozen. You can't utilize the funds in that account. You can't submit for reimbursements at that time because you're deemed active. And that's because Medicare has very clear and separate rules with regards to whether you're retired or not and the coverage that you're in. So we have to freeze the funds in there, and you can only use the funds that are in your cap account if you're deemed active. And if you have excess, meaning you have 2 times the premium of the plan you're in, anything above that 2 times is excess, you can use that money for reimbursements. I know I probably lost half of you at that point, but just know that if you're in the active plan, you can only use funds in the active plan if qualified for reimbursements if you have excess. And if you're in RMRP, you can only use the funds in RMRP when you're enrolled in RMRP. Another point that you need to make sure of, Natasha, I'm going to ask you to take on this one with regards to the explanation of what claims are eligible for reimbursement based on the account that you're in.
So if you're in RMRP, you can only submit for expenses incurred while you are enrolled in RMRP. So say, for example, for the October quarter, you're enrolled in C4. And then as of January 1st, you're enrolled in the retiree reimbursement program. You can only submit for expenses incurred after January 1st. You cannot submit expenses for expenses occurred between October 1st and December 31st because you weren't enrolled in RMRP at that time.
I just gave a few seconds because I thought some people would have some questions on that. It explains it here in, thank you, Natasha. It explains it here in the slides. But if you're in RMRP, any expenses incurred while enrolled in RMRP are eligible for reimbursement within 12 months from the date of service. So if you're one of those people who works, you're continuing to work. Again, Medicare does not want to be your primary payer. So if you continue to work and this quarter you're deemed active, next quarter you're deemed not active, then the quarter after that you're deemed active again. Next quarter you're not. So you can go back and forth if that's what you choose to do. But what's good is that even if you go into active coverage, let's say you have a qualified expense in February and you do not submit it by the time you are deemed active for the next quarter. If you are an RMRP at any point in the future, within 12 months from that date of service, you can submit it at a later point. So you don't always lose the opportunity to get something reimbursed. I will say, one of the things I say to people is, to avoid all of this, you can just remain as an active participant. You don't have to give us your Medicare card. We won't tell you every quarter whether you're in or out of this or that. It can get very confusing for people to know what to do or where to do, or can I submit this or not? So I would say that if you ever do have any questions, just to ask, because it can get very confusing, the in and out, the back and forth. If we don't have Medicare cards on file and you are on Medicare and you are in this plan, you yourself have to know which card to give to whatever doctor you're going to. Remember this, even though we may not have your Medicare card and you may not have ever enrolled in RMRP, you could still be enrolled here in active coverage. You could still be enrolled in Medicare. We don't tell you Medicare doesn't go away. Once you're enrolled, you're enrolled. You need to know that if you have coverage through us, Medicare is second. So if you have coverage through us and you have an ID card from us and you go to the doctor, that's the ID card you give to the doctor. If you don't have coverage with us, Medicare's ID card is what you give to the doctor. We can never tell you don't enroll in Medicare. That's your choice. There are rules and timings that you have to be aware of when enrolling in Medicare, and that we suggest you talk to your local Medicare office about. They have special enrollment options. If you're covered under another plan, you don't get penalized for if you have, I know under Part D, which is the prescription coverage, you get penalized if you don't enroll in Part D right away. But if you have other qualified coverage, we give you a notice that says, you have other qualified coverage for prescription benefit, and you don't get that penalty. So there's a lot of Medicare rules that you have to be aware of that we cannot guide you on. The only thing I can talk to you about today is what is, the eligibility, which we just discussed, but what is a qualified medical expense? What can you submit for reimbursement when enrolled in the RMRP plan at any given quarter? So briefly, you can submit premiums that you pay for Medicare Part B, premiums that you pay for Medicare Part D. You need to submit proof of those, and anything that the IRS deems is a medical taxable deduction, which is, we have it in our guidebook, the listing of all the qualified expenses, and I believe I have them here too, or maybe not. So let me just go back. So if you click on the link, you go to this link, www.IATSENBF.org, you can find the medical reimbursement guidebook. Within that guidebook will be a listing of all of the qualified medical reimbursement, all of the qualified medical expenses that are eligible for reimbursement. There's a listing of them, and they're specific. So be sure that you look at that before submitting an expense. It may not be eligible. But in that guidebook, it does have a listing of it. You could also go online and pull up publication 502, the IRS publication 502. It's the same exact list in that publication. But one thing to remember is you can only be reimbursed for post-tax premiums paid, not pre-taxed. But like if you're enrolled in some other plan and your spouse has pre-tax deductions taken out, those are not reimbursable. Only post-tax. Only monies that come out of your pocket are reimbursable. Does anybody have any questions about that? One of the great features about this account, does the online guidebook allow us to search if an expense is allowed instead of looking down the list? No, you'd have to look at the list, but it's alphabetical and it's also within 2 pages. It's not an extensive multi-page list. It is available for view, but no, you can't put in what you want to look for because the expenses are very specific. Even if you could, it may not even find what you're looking for. So no, you'd have to look through the list.
However, if you pull up the IRS 502, that does allow you to specifically click on a certain expense and bring you directly to that expense. Not our guidebook, but the 502 publication.
Right. You can do that online. You're welcome. So one of the great features about the RMRP account is that it does not ever forfeit. So under the regular medical reimbursement program, if you don't submit an expense within 24 months, or you don't have any contributions coming in within 20, if there's no activity in your account on the MRP, the regular one, those funds can be forfeited and go away forever. What's good about the RMRP account, the retiree MRP account, is that any funds that are in there, they're there until you die or until their funds are exhausted through claims or other expenses. So you can have a break. You can almost consider this like a savings in a way for reimbursements, in that any monies that go in there never go away until they're used or you pass away. So very unlike the other plan. So you can essentially retire at 65, have money in there, and not touch it again for another 10 years, and the funds will still be there. However, please note that there is a $25 per month admin fee, $100 per year, that will be taken from the account for admin costs to run the plan. But short of that, the money's in there, stay there until you use them. And it is not subject to any of the other active, any of the Plan C rules. This is an entirely separate account outside of Plan C.
I just want to add that if you die and there are no dependents on file, then the money eventually gets forfeited. But if you have dependents, eligible dependents on file, they can continue to use those funds until it's exhausted.
But make sure you put your dependents on your record before you pass away, because if they're not on, they will not be deemed, am I correct, Natasha? They have to be in our
Correct.
system
They
to
have to
be
be.
deemed a dependent, and we have to have the birth certificate and or marriage certificates for each one. So if they're not on your plan, you know, even when you're alive, they can't submit expenses for reimbursement. So they have to be younger than 26 for a child, and then your spouse. So make sure you put some dependents there. You don't have to enroll in a family plan or anything. They just have to be listed as a dependent with the birth certificate for your children, marriage certificate for your wife, to be considered a dependent. And if you should pass away, anybody who's listed as a dependent there with certain requirements, you know, children under age 26 and your spouse for as long as she uses it, can, or he can utilize those funds in that account. And we just discussed this. So if you're still enrolled and have a balance at the time of your death, it can be used to reimburse any medical expenses you incurred before your death. And in addition, any of your dependents who were enrolled at the time of your death may continue to submit and be reimbursed for covered expenses they incur until your account is exhausted. So it's important that if you do have one of these RMRP accounts, that you put your dependents on there, because they can utilize those funds as well. Does anybody, before I move this on to Natasha, for the retiree health benefit. Does anybody have any questions about the retiree MRP eligibility or qualified expenses? And if not, then I will turn this over to Natasha, who will discuss the retiree health benefits. And it's all yours.
Okay, so the retiree health benefit plan is separate from the retiree medical reimbursement program. It has different criteria that you would need to satisfy in order to be eligible for this benefit. Again, you do have to be enrolled in Medicare Parts A and B or Medicare Advantage. It is based on the fact that, again, you're not deemed active either under Plan C or Plan A. The difference is that to be eligible for the retiree plan, you have to have worked at least, or have to have at least 15 years of coverage under Plan C or Plan A. And a year of coverage or a year of service is at least 6 consecutive months in that year. So as long as you were covered for 6 consecutive months, that's considered a year of service, and you have to have 15 of those. The catch is that 4 out of those years have to be immediately prior to you turn 65. So that's why not a lot of people qualify for this retiree benefit. So if you do qualify, we'll send you an application. And all you need to do is really complete that application and send us back a copy of your Medicare card, or you're showing Parts A and B or Medicare Advantage. Now, if your spouse is over 65 as well, and we have a copy of your marriage certificate on file, then your spouse is also eligible for that benefit. And all we would need would be a copy of her Medicare or his Medicare ID card as well. Once you get that, the benefits begin the first of the month following receipt. So under the retiree plan, there's specific benefits that you're entitled to. You're automatically going to receive $75 per quarter reimbursement towards Part B, Medicare Part B, and that's $75 for you and $75 for your spouse as well. There's also a Medigap reimbursement. So if you have Medicare Part A and B and have a supplemental plan, then you could submit for reimbursement for that supplemental plan. And what you'll need to do is send in your invoice that you received and proof that you paid it. So you can get up to $246 per quarter each towards that Medigap premium.
And I'd like to add one thing, Natasha, just so everybody is clear, that this benefit plan is very different than a retiree plan. So if you're getting this is not it is a reimbursement, but it's a benefit. So if you're paying more for a Medigap plan that this $246 does not cover, Natasha, am I correct that they can then submit that balance to the RMRP and get the balance paid of that?
Correct. So you'll first submit it to be paid under the retiree to get reimbursed under the retiree plan, and then the difference can be submitted under the RMRP plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And there's also a Part D. So for Part D is for your prescription drug plan under Medicare. So you can get reimbursed up to $500 a year towards what you pay in premiums for Part D. Again, all you need to do is submit a copy of your invoice as well as proof that you paid that.
And the same applies here in that if you paid more for your prescription plan, anything above what you get, anything above this benefit, you can submit to RMRP for reimbursement of the balance.
Although the retiree health benefit doesn't provide actual medical benefits, it does give you optical benefit for glasses, that you can get glasses and an exam once in every 24-month period. And that's through Davis Vision. They administer that benefit. So that's a plus on the retiree plan.
Right.
And you can also get up to $1,500 for hearing aids. So that's for if you want to purchase hearing aids or you need to repair it.
Right. And I want to add that for the glasses and the exam, you do not have to be enrolled in an active plan through us. That's a benefit that is offered to retirees who are on Medicare, as well as that hearing aid benefit. So if you're one of these people, you're not enrolled in our active plan, but you are eligible for any of these benefits, you can submit proof of that and you get this back. And then anything above this, you can submit to retiree MRP if you have a balance there for anything additional paid out. So this is a benefit, and the RMRP is actually a medical reimbursement. So this is where you would submit everything first, then balance it to the RMRP plan.
All right. So there are 4 times a year that we run retiree reimbursement checks. So we'll send you, so it's January, April, July, and October. And pretty much the cutoff date for each of those quarters is the 10th of that month. So by the 10th of January, you should have submitted everything that you wanted to get reimbursed for the prior quarter. Now, keep in mind that you have 12 months to submit for reimbursement, to submit your request. Otherwise, you won't be able to obtain reimbursement for that. So you do have some time, but you're bound to that 12-month deadline. Now, retiree benefits would cease once you die, unless there's a spouse on file. So if your spouse if you had a spouse on file and she was also receiving benefits, then your spouse can continue to obtain those benefits for up to 1 year after your date of death. There's another way that your benefits would cease is if you're deemed active. So what Scott discussed under the retiree reimbursement program, if you were deemed active, meaning that you worked and you received contributions that combined with your cap balance equal that quarterly cost of C4, then the retiree benefits would cease for that quarter and you have to reapply once you're no longer deemed active. So it kind of goes hand in hand with RMRP.
And I just want to add or clarify that if you are deemed active or eligible for, Plan A, I forgot my thought now. But Natasha, my question is, are we going to, once they're deemed not active anymore, or once they're deemed active, this benefit ceases? Do we check every quarter and automatically send them another application once they become eligible again?
We do. What we have been doing is reinstating that retiree benefit once we see.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll double check on that just to make sure to see if we do send out another application.
So to finish that, if they've applied once, they only have to ever apply once. They're just kind of starting and stopping again every quarter like we do in RMRP.
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's what it is. Just wanted to clarify. Okay, so, again, that's it with the retiree benefits. It is, that is a very simple benefit. It's hard to become eligible. We didn't make the rules, we just administer them. So, if you have any questions about that, my best advice with all of this, the retiree on the health side, is when you do have premiums and you are eligible, you will get that application from us. If you don't get an application and you think you are eligible, you can check with us. We'll let you know. But once you get the application, complete it. The benefit doesn't come out of your RMRP account. It is a benefit, meaning the fund pays you $246 or pays you $75 per quarter for the Part B reimbursement, for the Part B premium. So anything that you have as far as premiums go, I would definitely submit to the retiree. How do they submit it, Natasha?
We send them an application quarterly. So once you're enrolled, we'll send you a form to fill out and you would just indicate the months that you're trying to get reimbursed for and you just fill it out and then attach proof. So
how do they get that form if they have another quarter? Is it online or do they have to request it?
Every quarter we send it out, and if you haven't received it, then they can call, and then they can either mail it to the fund office or email it to PSC.
With their applicable proof of the premiums
With the
paid.
applicable proof, yes.
So best advice to everybody is look for that form if you're enrolled. If you know you're enrolled and you filled out the application, look for that form. Know that once you're deemed active, you cannot do that again for that quarter. You'll get a form, I guess, the following quarter if you're deemed not active. Complete it. Send it first through that avenue, and anything that is not paid to you through the retiree health benefit, you can then submit to the RMRP plan if you have funds in there to have that balance paid out. So your premiums can be paid entirely in full if you've met all these qualifications. Again, that's today. It is a lot of information to digest. It is, thank you, Natasha, for doing that. It is a lot of information to digest. If you have any questions, if we've confused you so totally, you can easily send us an email. I'm confused totally. What does this mean? And we will get back to you and on an individual basis, just to guide you in the right direction. So understand we are here. Participant services, we have a participant services, it's customer service line. You can certainly send an email to psc@IATSE.org. Oh, I can put it here. That is our participant services center. You can call them. They may take a few hours or a day to get back to you, but please be patient. We deal with a lot of participants. You can ask a question of them on any health issue, whether it be retiree benefits, the RMRP plan. My suggestion for the retirement pension and annuity is to send your email, send your question to the email addresses provided. And they will answer that separately. And again, there's a lot of information. So again, if we've confused you, or you have any questions, any clarity, just let us know. We are here. And Jermaine, I think we're done. Do you have any other questions or any issues you want us to handle additionally?
This is Veronica. I just want to thank to three of you. It was so much complex and thorough than the presentation we had. And I was just wondering, it is because your plan is more complex, different than MPI, or because you are better than they are?
Of course. Well, listen, here's the deal. I would love to say that we're better than everybody, but I can't say that. In fairness to MPI, I don't know what they presented. I would love to think, because I am that kind of ego, that we are better than everybody. And I love my team. The two women that you see here, everybody are so on top of their game, and they're so dedicated to the participants. MPI is our sister fund, so I will never say that we've done better. Let's just say we were different. I like to talk. So, I will give you as much information as I can, because I always want everybody to make as educated a choice as possible. Selfishly, it takes a lot. You see how complex it can be. It takes a lot. It takes 2 seconds to make an incorrect decision if you don't have all the information. It takes sometimes a much longer period of time to correct it. So we like to make sure you all have all the information you need, even if it's overkill. So Veronica, I would say that MPI is equally as good as we are. And I'll leave it at that.
No, I'm more confused because I don't know if any of what you said is applicable to MPI.
No, it's not.
It's not.
No,
Okay.
two totally separate plans, not
Okay.
applicable. So
Okay.
what you've experienced today is just a learning on the NBF in case you ever work under agreements that require those contributions here and you can't transfer the benefits to MPI. And you always have our contacts, so you can always ask a question.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Sorry.
Bye. So everybody, again, thank you for being here today. And Jermaine, is there anything else you'd like us to talk about?
No, I think we're good. Everybody asked whatever questions they needed to find out answers for, and you've done a wonderful job. Thank you so much, all of you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for the kind words, B. Chin. Mr. or Mrs. Chin, I'm not sure, but thank you. That's very nice of you to say. And again, everybody, we're here. If you have questions or need any guidance or anything, send us an individual email. We'll be sure to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Take care.
Jermaine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.